When Sarah Hillstead was 26, her period came just like any other month. But this time it didn't stop. For 41 days, she experienced heavy bleeding and extreme pain to the point of passing out. Her body was clearly under attack, yet her gynecologist at the time, a man, assured her that these symptoms were normal for menstruation. Undark magazine on July 4th of 2022 states it was only when she switched gynecologists and had a hysterectomy that she learned she may have endometriosis, an excruciating condition where the endometrium, the tissue lining of the uterus, grows outside of it, which affects a staggering 11% of our world's menstruating population, according to the World Health Organization. And Sarah Hillstead found out most women wait upwards of 10 years in horrible pain just to receive a diagnosis. That is until she met Dr. Christine Metz, a seasoned medicinal biochemist in New York City who believes she can help and diagnose many other deadly diseases early by using a resource that has been around, well, forever. Menstrual blood. However, the groundbreaking practice of menstrual diagnostics isn't without its sexist stigma. As Metz recalls to the new statement on February 22nd of 2023, one of her former supervisors halted her research because he felt it was a little bit gross. But considering the aforementioned article states that menstrual blood has the power to help clinicians non-invasively monitor and detect disease, from endometriosis to diabetes to cancer, it's about time that we unsqueamishly take a better look at menstrual diagnostics. First, by exploring its disgusting history. Second, examining research findings before finally unplugging some future implications. Because as the Scientific American explains on May 13th of 2022, diseases like endometriosis would have a cure. If we could talk about menstrual blood and study it without shame. Dr. Metz believes the biggest barrier to menstrual diagnostics is the stigma surrounding it. So today we're going to talk about periods. A lot. I'll go first. It was spring break of 2014. I had just woken up from my morning tinkle, pulled on my underwear, and boom, my first period. My mom had neglected to discuss it with me because I had gotten it so young, but I had no clue what was happening, so I hid. It was one of the first times that I can remember feeling ashamed about my body. Instead of holding shame, Dr. Metz believes our periods hold power. Let's discuss the history of menstrual diagnostics. First, by learning how it began, and second, the subsequent research trial. First, menstrual diagnostics started with the study of endometriosis. In an interview with Health Digest on January 22nd of 2023, Dr. Metz explains that a formal diagnosis of endometriosis requires a laparoscopy, an operation performed under a general anesthetic, with a lengthy recovery time. Many of Metz's patients were hesitant to undergo the surgery because of the cost, fear of scarring, and availability of surgeons able to perform it. The Johns Hopkins School of Medicine cites that this surgery has potential for major complications, injury to the bowel and bladder, and infection of the uterus. Even then, the Yale School of Medicine cites it takes an average of 7 years to properly diagnose. When Dr. Metz was introduced to people like Sarah Hillstead and learned of their traumatic stories, she knew that a non-invasive and more effective test was long overdue. Second, this was the catalyst that Metz needed to begin her work on the ROSE trial, which stands for Research Outsmarts Endometriosis. As she previously stated in her Undark magazine article, one day it hit me. Women bleed every month. Why has nobody used it? Sounds easy, right? Wrong. Dr. Metz couldn't even influence her colleagues to recruit their own patients for her study because of how gross menstrual blood is. So she took to social media and news publicity and gathered over 2,000 willing participants for her study. For her first ROSE trial, Metz used 33 of those women and asked them to mail in their menstrual blood on their heaviest days through menstrual cups. The ROSE trial website cites that they would like to non-invasively monitor disease while using menstrual blood as their primary resource. Well, the results are in. They've done that. And so much more. Now, not to brag, but it's looking like us menstruators have discovered a new superpower. A messy, painful superpower for sure, but hey, don't hate us because you ain't us. And if you don't menstruate, no stress. Dr. Metz believes that we all can take part in fighting the stigma, just as she has done with her Rose trial. Let's discuss the Rose trial and research findings that are shaping the new field of menstrual diagnostics. First, according to the National Health Institute, Dr. Metz found cell clusters in menstrual blood with endometrial tissue are depleted in cases of endometriosis compared to a healthy human, almost as if these cell clusters have migrated outside of the uterus and into other parts of the body, which is the exact cause of the condition. This proves that the markers for endometriosis are inside of menstrual blood and therefore can be detected at an earlier age. Furthermore, she found in comparing venous and menstrual blood, 548 proteins are shared, with 513 being unique to menstrual blood only. Essentially, because menstrual blood has twice the amount of proteins than a regular blood test, it is far more effective in diagnosing life-threatening disease. Second, this was the catalyst for the International Society of Environmental Epidemiologists in August of last year to study menstrual blood for recurrent pregnancy loss. It also influenced QVIN, a health screening phone application that detects cervical cancer, HPV, and diabetes from a single menstrual pad. Dr. Metz opened the door for the ability to diagnose these diseases in record-breaking time. Right now, she is one of a handful of scientists worldwide studying menstrual blood, which, as the 2022 Magazine for Biology and Molecular Biochemistry points out, is appalling, considering the great potential that these specimens hold. But in order for menstrual diagnostics to reach its full potential, we need to examine two social implications. First, Dr. Jessica Shepard, a board-certified OBGYN, explains to Pain Practical Management on March 14th of 2022 that there are vast reproductive health disparities between Black women and the rest of the population. We are 4 times less likely to get a diagnosis of endometriosis, even though it's the leading cause of hysterectomies. Much of this, Dr. Shepard points out, is because of racism within the medical field. As NPR explains on May 22nd of 2022, many doctors don't believe Black women when we try to discuss our pain, and it's leading to our death at a rate 3 times higher. However, could the at-home menstrual diagnostic tools currently being developed help mitigate this form of medical racism? If I come to my doctor's office with a diagnosis already in hand, it very well could save my life. Second, in a post-Roe society, reproductive health has been propelled into the spotlight. Mailing in your menstrual blood and tracking results online every month can reveal a great deal about your health, but it also can so easily be held against us. The Washington Post on February 14th of 2023 explains that lawmakers in Republican states are already striking down legislation to shield menstrual data from law enforcement. Will people partake in something that's potentially life-saving? If there's a chance they will be prosecuted? 19 surgeries later, Sarah Helsted is still learning so much about her body and her extreme case of endometriosis. If she hadn't participated in the Rose trial, she wouldn't have received treatment to mitigate her chronic pain. Today, we discussed the history of menstrual diagnostics, the Rose trial, and 2 critical implications. As for me, I've given up feeling ashamed about the things my body does to keep me alive, because our periods are valid blood work. Our periods have a purpose, and our periods hold power.